The light is a physical weight. It presses down on me, hot and white, bleaching the world of all color except the deep, endless black of the audience beyond. My heart isn't racing. It's a slow, heavy drum against my ribs, a bass note in the symphony of my own shock. I can feel the smooth, cool surface of the award in my hands, a heavy piece of sculpted glass that feels both impossibly fragile and dense as a star. The applause is a distant roar, like the ocean heard through a seashell. It's for me. They are all standing, their faces turned up to me, a sea of anonymous admiration. But I only see one face. Mark. He's not anonymous. He is etched into the very marrow of my bones. He's sitting at table 7, the prime corporate spot, right near the stage.
He's not standing.
He's frozen, half risen from his chair, his hand gripping the back of it so tightly his knuckles are white. His mouth is slightly open, a perfect, silent "oh" of disbelief. The charming, confident smile he wears like a second skin has vanished, stripped away, leaving behind the raw, slack-jawed face of a man who has just seen a ghost. His new life, the younger, sleeker model, is at his side. Her name is Amelia. She's clapping enthusiastically, a bright, oblivious smile on her face, turning to say something to him. But he doesn't hear her. He can't. His eyes are locked on mine, and in them, I see the whole rotten history of us collapsing in on itself. He looks old, older than I have ever seen him, and I, in the unforgiving glare of the spotlight, feel timeless. If you've ever felt invisible, only to realize you were the one thing they couldn't look away from, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this is your first time here, please subscribe. It helps me share these moments, these stories, more than you could ever know. It started, as most endings do, with 1,000 tiny deaths. Not with a bang, but with a quiet, corrosive drip of indifference. For 20 years, our life had been a comfortable rhythm, a song I thought we were composing together. I was the steady backbeat, the quiet harmony that allowed his melody to soar. I managed the house, a sprawling colonial that was more a testament to his success than a home for our love. I managed the calendars, the social obligations, the dry cleaning, his parents' birthdays, the delicate ecosystem of our shared existence. I did it all so he could focus on climbing. And he climbed. Vice president of marketing at one of the biggest tech firms in the country. He was brilliant, I never denied that. Charismatic, sharp, a shark in a tailored suit. But the higher he climbed, the smaller I seemed to become in his eyes. The little things started first. The way his eyes would glaze over when I talked about my day, which was filled with the logistics of his life. The book club I loved became your little hen party. The community garden I poured my soul into was your dirt hobby. He stopped asking for my opinion, first on big things like investments, then on small things like which tie to wear. It was a slow, methodical erasure. Then came the comments about age. They were disguised as jokes, of course. Mark was a master of the velvet-covered insult. A new wrinkle near my eye would be met with a playful poke and a, "Oh, we're starting to see some mileage there." When I'd laugh off his suggestion of Botox, he'd sigh dramatically. "I'm just trying to help you keep up, honey. It's a competitive world." He was 45, I was 43. To hear him talk, you'd think he was a vibrant young buck, and I was a relic crumbling to dust before his very eyes. He started talking about youth as if it were a currency, the only one that mattered. His new hires were always young and hungry. A new marketing campaign was fresh, energetic, young. His world was a frantic sprint forward, and I, he implied, was standing still. The supportive wife who'd put her own career in graphic design on hold to raise our son and build his platform was now just part of the furniture. Comfortable, familiar, but ultimately outdated. My own passion, my little secret, was a small nonprofit I'd started from our spare bedroom. It was called Second Draft. The idea was simple. We collected discarded corporate laptops, refurbished them, and gave them to women in shelters, women trying to restart their lives after escaping abuse or addiction. It gave them a tool to write resumes, apply for jobs, take online courses. to write their second draft. I did it all myself at first, driving to offices to pick up dusty old machines, spending late nights watching tutorials on how to wipe hard drives and install new operating systems. It was my quiet rebellion. It was the one place where I wasn't just Mark's wife. I was a founder.
I was helping people.
I never talked to him about it much. He'd shown a passing, dismissive interest once, calling it a cute little charity thing. The condescension in his voice was enough to make me build a wall around it. It was mine, and I wouldn't let him tarnish it. Our son, Leo, was away at college, and the house had grown cavernous and silent. The silence amplified everything. The tick of the grandfather clock in the hall sounded like a countdown. The space between us on the king-sized bed felt like a chasm. I'd lie awake at night, feeling the cold dread creep in. I was living in a beautiful museum dedicated to a life that no longer felt like my own. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to demand he look at me, really look at me. But I didn't. I just kept tending my garden, fixing my laptops, and pretending the song wasn't over. I thought, foolishly, that if I just held my note long enough, he'd find his way back to the harmony. The end came on a Tuesday. There was nothing special about it. It was gray and drizzling outside. I was paying bills at the kitchen island, the scent of coffee and lemon cleaner in the air. Mark came home early, which was unusual. He didn't drop his briefcase by the door with a weary sigh like he always did. He placed it carefully on the floor, as if it were made of glass. He stood there for a moment, looking at me, and his face was a blank mask. "We need to talk," he said. The four most terrifying words in the English language. My stomach plummeted. I put down the pen, my hand suddenly slick with sweat. "Okay, is everything all right at work?" He let out a short, bitter laugh. "Work is fine. Work is great." He walked over to the counter, but didn't sit. He loomed. "This is about us, Claire. There is a moment before the axe falls when the forest holds its breath. That was this moment. The ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, it all faded into a dull roar in my ears. "I'm not happy," he said, the words clipped and sterile. "I haven't been happy for a long time." I wanted to say, "And you think I have been?" I wanted to list every sacrifice, every ignored comment, every lonely night. But my throat was tight, my tongue a leaden weight in my mouth. I just stared at him, waiting. "I've met someone," he continued, not looking at me now, his eyes fixed on the perfectly polished granite of the countertop. "Her name is Amelia. She works in my department. She's vibrant. She gets it. She gets my world. Vibrant." The word was a slap. The unspoken contrast hung in the air between us. "And you are not." "I'm moving out this weekend," he said, finally looking at me. And there was no sadness in his eyes.
No regret.
Just a cold, hard finality. It was a business decision, an acquisition. He was divesting an old, underperforming asset. I found my voice, but it was a stranger's, thin and reedy. "After 20 years? Just like that? You're just leaving?" He sighed, a long, exasperated sound, as if I were a difficult child. "It's not just like that, Claire. This has been coming for years. We've grown apart. We want different things." He paused, and then delivered the killing blow, the line he'd clearly rehearsed, the one designed to cut me to the bone and absolve him of all guilt. "Look, I'll make sure you're taken care of. But I need to be with someone who is on my level, someone with a future. You and I, we're just from different generations now. You're a wonderful person, but you're getting older. I need something new."
"I'm sorry."
"Too old." He didn't say the words exactly like that, not in that neat little package, but the message was clear. I was a classic model. He was trading in for the latest version with fewer miles and a better sound system. The life I had dedicated to him, the youth I had spent on him, had expired. He had used it all up and was now discarding the empty container. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. A strange, glacial calm settled over me. I looked at this man, this stranger wearing my husband's face, and I felt nothing but a profound, hollow emptiness. He had finally said the quiet part out loud. And in doing so, he had severed the last thread. He thought he was ending my life. He had no idea he was about to begin it. The first few weeks were a blur of gray. The house, once his monument, was now my tomb. Every object screamed his absence. The indentation on his side of the bed. The empty space in the closet, smelling faintly of his cologne. The silence was the loudest thing I had ever heard. It was a physical presence, pressing in on me, suffocating me. I would wander from room to room, a ghost in my own home, touching the surfaces of a life that had been declared obsolete. My friends tried. They brought casseroles and wine. They sat with me, offering platitudes that felt like pebbles thrown at a fortress. You're better off without him, he's a monster. You'll find someone new, they meant well, but they couldn't understand the depth of the void. It wasn't just about losing a husband. It was about being told my entire existence had been a waste. The narrative of my life, the one where I was the devoted partner in a successful team, had been ripped up and set on fire. The self-doubt was a cancer. I'd look in the mirror, and all I could see were the things he'd pointed out. The fine lines fanning from my eyes. The silver threads in my hair. The slight softening of my jawline. I saw a woman who had been deemed insufficient. I was 43, and I felt ancient, discarded. His words echoed in my head on a loop. You're getting older. I need something new. I tried to re-enter the world. I thought maybe getting a job, a real 9-to-5, would give me structure, a sense of purpose. I updated my old graphic design portfolio. The software I knew was 2 generations out of date. The styles had all changed. I spent weeks teaching myself the new programs, my brain feeling stiff and slow. I sent out dozens of applications. Most were met with silence. I got a few interviews. They were brutal. I'd sit across from hiring managers who were 15 years younger than me, their faces a mixture of politeness and pity. They'd look at the 20-year gap in my resume, and their smiles would tighten. So, you took some time off to raise a family? One asked, the question hanging in the air like an accusation. I tried to frame my life management skills, my budgeting, my scheduling, as relevant experience. They saw a housewife playing dress-up. One interviewer, a brisk woman in her late 20s with a severe haircut, actually said, "We're looking for someone who is more digitally native. Someone who can keep up with the fast pace here." It was Mark's language, his philosophy, bouncing back at me from the indifferent face of a stranger. I was too old. The world seemed to agree with him. Each rejection was another stone on my chest. I'd come home to the silent house, the rejection email glowing on my laptop screen, and feel the walls closing in. The casseroles stopped coming. The phone calls became less frequent. The world moves on, and I was being left behind. I started to believe him. Maybe he was right. Maybe my best years were over. Maybe I was nothing without him. The gray was turning to black. I was drowning. The divorce proceedings began, and that's when I learned the difference between indifference and malice. Mark wasn't just leaving me. He was trying to dismantle me, piece by piece. His first settlement offer was an insult. It was a pittance, a fraction of what I was entitled to after 2 decades of marriage. His lawyer, a barracuda in a skirt who looked like she gargled gravel for fun, sent a letter arguing that my lack of financial contribution to the marriage meant I deserved less. They painted me as a freeloader, a kept woman who had coasted on Mark's success. They completely erased my 20 years of unpaid labor, the child-rearing, the home management, the entertaining of his clients, the entire scaffolding that had allowed his career to flourish. He was strategic, cruel. He was using the very life I had built for him as a weapon against me. The message was clear. You were nothing then, and you are nothing now. Then came Amelia. He wasn't discreet. He was flaunting her. Pictures appeared on his social media. The 2 of them at a vineyard, her blonde hair catching the light, her arms slung possessively around his neck. The 2 of them at a black tie gala, the same one we used to attend together, only now he was standing next to a newer, shinier version of a wife. She was 28, a marketing coordinator at his firm.
Of course she was.
He hadn't just replaced me. He had hired my replacement. The pain was sharp and visceral. It was a public humiliation. Our mutual friend saw it. My family saw it. My son, Leo, saw it. He called me, his voice tight with anger. Mom, he's being a complete ass. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetie. I'd lie, my voice bright and brittle, not wanting to burden him. But I wasn't fine. I was crumbling. The challenges kept mounting. My dirt hobby, the community garden, was on city land. Suddenly, we received an eviction notice. A new beautification project was slated for the area, sponsored by a corporate donor. I did some digging. The donor was Mark's company. It was a small, petty act of cruelty, but it felt enormous. He was salting the earth of my small joys. Then he came for second draft. A lawyer's letter arrived, questioning the nonprofit status, suggesting financial irregularities. It was baseless, a scare tactic designed to bury me in paperwork and legal fees I couldn't afford. He knew it was my passion project, the one thing that was truly mine, and he was trying to poison it. He was systematically trying to prove his point, that without him, I would fail, that I was incapable of building anything of value on my own. I remember one night, sitting on the floor of the spare bedroom, surrounded by half-assembled laptops and threatening legal documents. The weight of it all was crushing me. The house was in foreclosure because he'd stopped paying the mortgage, claiming it was my responsibility now. My savings were dwindling, eaten up by my own legal fees. I was losing the house, the garden, and now it felt like I was losing second draft. He was going to win. He was going to strip me of everything and leave me with nothing but his narrative of my failure. I pulled my knees to my chest, and for the first time since he'd left, I let out a raw, guttural sob. It wasn't a cry of sadness. It was a howl of pure, undiluted rage. I cried for a long time. A deep, ugly, cleansing cry. When it was over, I was hollowed out, empty. I sat there in the silence, my face stiff with dried tears, my body aching. And in that emptiness, something new began to stir. A tiny, hard kernel of something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't hope. It was resolve. I looked around the room, at the stacks of old Dell and Lenovo laptops, at the boxes of spare parts, at the whiteboard where I'd mapped out my process flow. This wasn't a cute little charity thing, this was a system. An efficient, scalable model for recycling technology and empowering women. I had built this.
Me.
Not Mark's wife.
Claire.
My anger, which had been a wild, destructive fire, began to cool and harden into something else. It became steel. A cold, sharp, focused blade. He thought this was a battle of emotion versus logic, of a hysterical, aging woman versus a rational, successful man. He was wrong. This was a business negotiation now, and I was done playing the victim. I stood up, my knees cracking. I walked into the bathroom and looked at my reflection. My eyes were red-rimmed and puffy. My hair was a mess. But for the first time, I wasn't looking for wrinkles or signs of decay. I was looking at a fighter. I saw the woman who had negotiated with surly procurement managers to get their old tech for free. The woman who had taught herself how to diagnose a failing hard drive from a YouTube video. The woman who had built a network of volunteers and secured placement for her machines in a dozen shelters across the state. He had underestimated me. That was his mistake. He had looked at me for 20 years and had never actually seen me. The next morning, I fired my timid, overwhelmed lawyer. I took a significant chunk of my dwindling savings and hired the most ruthless, brilliant, and expensive divorce attorney in the city. Her name was Eleanor Vance, and she had a reputation for eating men like Mark for breakfast. When I told her my story, she didn't offer sympathy. She gave a thin, predatory smile. "Oh, this will be fun," she said. "Men like your husband always leave a paper trail. They think they're smarter than everyone, and that makes them sloppy." That night, I didn't mourn. I strategized. I went back through 20 years of bank statements, tax returns, and credit card bills. I started building a case, not just for what I was owed, but for what I had contributed. I documented every dinner party for his clients, every trip I'd planned, Every hour I'd spent creating the perfect domestic backdrop for his ascent. I was quantifying the unquantifiable. And I turned my attention back to second draft. The legal threat from Mark was a wake-up call. I had been thinking too small, keeping it my little secret, that had made it vulnerable. It was time to make it real, to make it untouchable. I spent every waking hour refining the model, creating a slick, professional proposal. I documented our success stories, the women who had gotten jobs, enrolled in college, reconnected with their families, all using the laptops we provided. I gathered testimonials. I built a fortress of data and human impact around my little charity thing. The shift was profound. I stopped reacting to his attacks and started planning my own offensive. I wasn't fighting for the past anymore. I was fighting for my future. And for the first time, the future didn't look like a gray, empty void. It looked like a battlefield. And I was finally wearing armor. The funny thing about revenge is that the best kind isn't about getting even. It's about getting ahead. My plan wasn't just to survive his assault. It was to build something so successful, so undeniable, that his opinion of me would become utterly and completely irrelevant. The fact that it would also humiliate him was just a beautiful, delicious bonus. Mark's legal attacks grew more aggressive, a clear sign that my new lawyer, Eleanor, was hitting a nerve. He was used to me being a pushover, a soft place to land. He wasn't prepared for a fight. Eleanor was a master of procedural warfare, burying his legal team in motions and requests for discovery. She requested detailed records of his expense accounts, his bonus structures, his stock options. Things he did not want exposed. The tone of the letters from his lawyer shifted from arrogant and dismissive to tense and irritated. He tried to turn up the heat on me personally. He started using Amelia as a pawn. She began posting on social media from places that were sacred to us. A picture of her and Mark at the little inn in Vermont where we spent our honeymoon, with the caption, "Making new memories in our favorite place," a photo of her wearing a delicate gold necklace, one I recognized instantly. It was the one I had left behind in the master bathroom jewelry box. He had given it to her. Each post was a carefully calibrated dart, aimed at my heart. In the beginning, they would have shattered me. Now they just fueled the cold fire. I would look at the photo, the manufactured happiness, and I would turn back to my spreadsheets and my business plan. He was playing checkers. I was learning to play chess. The crisis came when my biggest corporate donor, a mid-sized accounting firm that provided a steady stream of 3-year-old laptops, suddenly pulled out. The email was vague, citing a change in corporate giving strategy. I called my contact there, a kind woman named Sarah who had always championed my work. She was cagey, uncomfortable. "I'm so sorry, Claire," she whispered into the phone. "It came from the top. Our CEO is on the board of a new civic initiative with Mark." I think pressure was applied. It was a body blow. Their machines were the lifeblood of second draft. Without them, my inventory would dry up in 2 months. I had women on my waiting list. Shelters were counting on me. Mark had found my weak point and squeezed. It was a classic corporate power play, executed with brutal efficiency.
He was choking my supply chain.
That night, the weight was immense. I was hemorrhaging money on legal fees. My main source of inventory was gone. The foreclosure notice on the house felt like a ticking clock. For a moment, the old despair washed over me. The sheer scale of his power, his influence, felt insurmountable. He could snap his fingers and undo months of my hard work. The image of him and Amelia, smiling, successful, while I sat here in a dark house surrounded by failure, was almost too much to bear. It felt like checkmate. He was going to crush me, just as he intended. I sank onto the couch, the silence of the house pressing in again. I was exhausted. I thought about giving up. I could just take whatever settlement he offered, sell the house, and disappear. Move somewhere small, anonymous. Live a quiet life. A part of me, the tired, wounded part, yearned for it. For the fight to just be over. And then, the phone rang. It was Leo. "Hey, Mom. Just checking in. How are you holding up?" I tried to put on the brave voice, but it cracked. "It's been a tough day, sweetie. And for the first time, I told him everything. Not the sanitized version, but the truth. The legal threats, the donor pulling out, the fear that I was going to lose it all. I laid it all bare, and the act of speaking it, of admitting the depth of the crisis, was itself a release. He listened patiently. When I was done, there was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Mom," he said, his voice low and serious. "He's a bully. That's all he is. He's trying to scare you into thinking you're small. But you're not." He paused again. "Remember when I was a kid, and I was trying to build that giant Lego Millennium Falcon? And I got halfway through, and the whole thing collapsed? I was ready to quit, to throw it all in the bin." I remembered. He had been sobbing with frustration. "Yes, I remember. And you sat down with me on the floor," he continued, "and you told me something. You said, sometimes things have to fall apart so you can build them back even stronger. You spent the whole afternoon with me, sorting the pieces, helping me rebuild it. You didn't do it for me. You just showed me I could do it myself." Tears welled in my eyes, but these were different. They weren't tears of despair. "I remember that," I whispered. "You have to do that now, Mom," he said, his voice firm. "This is your Lego Falcon moment. It fell apart.
So build it back.
Stronger." Hanging up the phone, something inside me shifted, solidified. My son's words, my own words from years ago, echoed in the silent room. Sometimes things have to fall apart so you can build them back even stronger. Mark hadn't checkmated me. He had just cleared the board. It was my turn to move. I stood up and walked back into my office. I looked at the whiteboard, at my plans, at the names of the women I was helping. He wanted to choke my supply chain?
Fine.
I would build a new one. A better one. He was using his corporate network against me?
Fine.
I would go bigger. I would go public. An idea, audacious and terrifying, began to form in my mind. Every year, Mark's company, Omnicorp, hosted a lavish awards ceremony called the Innovator of the Year Gala. It was a major industry event. They gave out awards for technological innovation, but they also had a category heavily promoted as part of their corporate social responsibility push, called the Community Catalyst Award. It was for a nonprofit or individual whose work used technology to create profound social change. The winner received a massive grant and a year-long partnership with Omnicorp. Mark was on the selection committee. The thought was insane. Applying for an award judged, in part, by the very man trying to destroy me. It was like walking into the lion's den and asking for a steak. But the more I thought about it, the more perfect it seemed. He would dismiss it instantly. He would never in a million years believe my cute little charity thing could compete on that level. He wouldn't even see me as a threat. He would be my blind spot. The rest of the committee, however, wouldn't see Mark's discarded wife. They would see a professionally presented, data-driven, high-impact nonprofit. They would see Second Draft. It was the ultimate gamble. But my son was right. I wasn't going to be scared into thinking I was small. I was going to walk right into the heart of my enemy's fortress and show them all how to build something that lasts. That night, I didn't sleep. I rewrote my entire proposal, tailoring it specifically for the Catalyst Award. I worked with a furious, focused energy I hadn't felt in my life. The sun came up, and I was still at my desk, the final application glowing on the screen. I clicked submit. The board was reset. The game was on. The weeks that followed were a strange exercise in compartmentalization. By day, I was in a brutal legal war with Mark, Eleanor's letters flying back and forth, each one a calculated strike. By night, I was pouring every ounce of my energy into Second Draft, finding new sources for laptops, however small. I organized a community drive, standing outside grocery stores with flyers. I contacted small IT businesses, offering to handle their e-waste disposal in exchange for their usable machines. I was patching the holes in my ship while sailing it directly into a hurricane. I didn't hear anything about the Catalyst Award for almost 2 months. I assumed my application had been tossed in the bin, likely with a derisive laugh from Mark. He was so consumed with the divorce battle, so focused on crushing me legally, that I was sure he considered Second Draft a neutralized threat. He had cut off my main artery. He probably thought he was just waiting for me to bleed out. The plot twist didn't arrive with a thunderclap. It came in the form of a crisp, formal email from a name I didn't recognize. Jonathan Sterling, Executive Vice President, Omnicorp. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened it. The email was brief. It informed me that Second Draft had been selected as one of 3 finalists for the Community Catalyst Award. It requested my presence at a final interview with the selection committee next week. I stared at the screen, reading the words over and over. A finalist. It didn't seem real. How was this possible? Mark was on that committee. Did he recuse himself? Did he try to block it and get overruled? And this thought sent a chill down my spine. Was this some kind of trap? A way to humiliate me publicly? I called Eleanor. They want me to present to the committee, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Mark will be there. Good, she said, her voice sharp and cool as ice. This is not a trap, Claire. This is an opportunity. He has wildly, fatally, underestimated you. Men like him, they build their worlds on a foundation of assumptions. His assumption is that you are weak and incompetent. It's the lens through which he views your every action. He cannot conceive of you succeeding on his turf. So you will walk into that room, and you will not be his ex-wife. You will be the founder and CEO of a groundbreaking nonprofit. You will be professional, you will be brilliant, and you will not even look at him. Her words were a tonic. She was right. My greatest advantage was his arrogance. The day of the presentation, I dressed in the armor Eleanor had advised, a simple, elegant, dark blue sheath dress. Professional, powerful, understated. I walked into the Omnicorp Tower, a place I had only ever entered as Mark's wife for Christmas parties. The air was thick with the scent of money and ambition. I was escorted to a top-floor boardroom. The room was intimidating, a long mahogany table polished to a mirror shine, with a panoramic view of the city skyline. And there they were, the committee. 5 people. 4 of them were strangers. And at the far end of the table, there was Mark. When I walked in, his head snapped up. The flicker of shock in his eyes was instant, followed by a mask of cool indifference. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible shake of his head, a look of, what is she doing here? He thought I was a gnat that had somehow flown into his sterile, important world. The man at the head of the table stood up. He was in his late 60s, with a mane of white hair and a warm, intelligent face. Ms. Peterson.
I'm Jonathan Sterling.
Thank you for coming in. He was the CEO. The big boss. He was nothing like the corporate sharks I'd imagined. He seemed genuine. I gave my presentation. I didn't talk about my personal story. I talked about the e-waste crisis. I talked about the digital divide. I talked about the untapped potential of women re-entering the workforce. I presented my data, my metrics, my success stories. I laid out my vision for scaling Second Draft nationally with Omnicorp's partnership. I was poised, passionate, and in complete command of my material. I was not the woman Mark had left. I was someone new. I felt Mark's eyes on me the entire time, a burning, hostile pressure. I never met his gaze. He was just a piece of furniture in the room. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Jonathan Sterling leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with interest. That's one of the most compelling and efficient social enterprise models I've ever seen, he said. You've essentially created a zero-cost supply chain for a high-impact philanthropic endeavor. It's brilliant. Another board member chimed in. The scalability is what gets me. This could be a national program. Then Mark spoke. His voice was smooth, laced with a kind of patronizing concern. It is a very charming initiative, he began. But I have to wonder about its sustainability. The reliance on donated hardware is a vulnerability. We saw her biggest donor just pulled out. What happens when the charity well runs dry? He delivered the lines with a look of feigned objectivity, a subtle act of sabotage disguised as due diligence. He was reminding the committee that I was a failure, that my project was already dying. This was the moment, the trap he thought he was setting. But I was ready for it. I turned my head slowly and looked directly at him for the first time. I gave him a small, cool smile. That's an excellent point, Mark, I said, using his name, making it clear to everyone in the room that we knew each other. His face tightened. You're right, relying on corporate charity is a flawed model. It's unpredictable. That's why Second Draft is already transitioning to a new acquisition model. I turned back to the CEO. We've developed a B2B service. We now offer corporations a certified, secure, and environmentally compliant data wiping and e-waste recycling service. For a fee that is significantly lower than the industry standard, we handle their end-of-life hardware. Our payment is the hardware itself. We've turned our biggest vulnerability into our core revenue stream. We are no longer a charity. We are a self-sustaining social enterprise. The room was silent. I had just taken Mark's attack, his inside information, and turned it into my greatest strength. I had shown them I was a strategist, that I could pivot and innovate. The CEO, Jonathan Sterling, was beaming. He looked at Mark. Well, Mark, it seems like your concerns have already been addressed. That's the kind of thinking we need. Mark's face was a thundercloud. He was speechless. He had tried to shoot me down, but the bullet had ricocheted and hit him squarely between the eyes. He had no idea I had built this new model. In his mind, I was still the clueless housewife playing with old computers in a spare room. The final, beautiful twist came from Amelia. I didn't even know it was happening. A few days after the presentation, I received a call from Jonathan Sterling's office. He wanted another meeting. Just him and me. I was terrified. We met in his corner office. Claire, he said, getting straight to the point. I'll be honest. Your presentation was the strongest, but Mark raised some flags internally after you left. He tried to paint you as an amateur, unstable. He hinted at a messy personal history. My blood ran cold. But then, Sterling continued, a wry smile on his face, something interesting happened. We have a company-wide anonymous feedback portal. A young woman in the marketing department, an Amelia Vance, has been lodging complaints for months about our wasteful and unethical hardware disposal practices. She pointed out that we pay a fortune to a third-party vendor to shred perfectly good 3-year-old machines, and that it's a PR disaster waiting to happen. She even proposed we find a way to donate them. My jaw dropped. Amelia. His Amelia. Sterling leaned back in his chair. Her complaints landed on my desk the same day your proposal did. You didn't just offer a solution to a social problem, Claire. You offered a brilliant, cost-effective solution to one of my own internal headaches. You're going to save this company millions of dollars and give us the best PR story we've had in a decade, he paused, his eyes twinkling. Mark's objections suddenly looked, well, they looked personal. And very, very petty. He had been completely and utterly blindsided. His own girlfriend, in her attempt to look smart and conscientious at her new job, had inadvertently become my star witness. She had validated my entire business proposition from inside his own company. He had tried to poison the well, but she had handed me a glass of clean, cold water. The irony was so exquisite it was almost poetic. He had left me for a younger, more vibrant woman, and that very woman had just handed me the keys to his kingdom. The night of the gala arrives. The air in the grand ballroom is thick with expensive perfume and the low hum of 1,000 conversations. Crystal glasses clink. Waiters weave through the crowd with trays of champagne. I see them all from my seat at a table near the front, a table for the finalists. I'm not here as a plus one. I'm here under my own name, my company's name. I feel a strange sense of calm. The war is over, and I'm just waiting for the treaty to be signed. Eleanor is my guest tonight. She looks regal in a black gown, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. Enjoy this, Claire, she murmurs, squeezing my hand. You've earned it. The ceremony begins. The corporate awards are given out, a blur of self-congratulation and slickly produced videos. Mark goes on stage to present an award for Marketing Campaign of the Year. He's back in his element, charming, confident, basking in the spotlight. He doesn't look in my direction, but I can feel his awareness of me, a tense, static energy in the air between us. Finally, Jonathan Sterling takes the stage to present the final award of the evening. the Community Catalyst Award. This award is personal to me, he begins, his voice warm and resonant, filling the vast room. It represents the soul of our company. The idea that innovation isn't just about profits, it's about progress. It's about using our resources to build a better world. A video plays, showcasing the work of the 3 finalists. There's a project building solar wells in Africa and an app that connects homeless youth with services. And then there's second draft. The screen fills with images of my workshop, the laptops, the faces of the women I've helped. I see testimonials from shelter directors, from the women themselves, their voices full of a hope I helped give them. My voiceover explains the mission, the model, the vision. It looks so professional, so powerful. I barely recognize it as the thing I started in my pajamas in a lonely, silent house. The video ends. The lights come up. Sterling is holding the heavy glass award. All 3 finalists are extraordinary, he says. But one project stood out for its sheer brilliance, its elegant simplicity, and its profound, immediate impact. It took a problem, corporate waste, and turned it into a solution for a deeply human need. It doesn't just give people a tool, it gives them a chance to rewrite their own stories. He pauses, scanning the room. The building holds its breath. The winner of this year's Community Catalyst Award and a grant of $250,000 is Second Draft, founded by Ms. Claire Peterson. The room erupts in applause. It's a wave of sound that washes over me, so much bigger and louder than I imagined. Eleanor is hugging me. People at my table are standing, clapping, smiling at me. I stand up, my legs feeling strangely disconnected from my body. And as I do, my eyes find his. Table 7.
Mark.
He is frozen. His face is a canvas of pure, unadulterated shock. It's the face of a man watching his entire worldview crumble in real time. The universe he's so carefully constructed, where he was the sun and I was a forgotten, dying planet, has just been turned inside out. Amelia is beside him, clapping wildly, a look of genuine delight on her face. She turns to him, beaming, expecting him to share her excitement. But he can't move. He can't speak. He just stares at me, his jaw slack, his carefully tailored suit suddenly looking like a costume on a man who has forgotten his lines. I walk toward the stage, each step feeling deliberate and heavy. The applause seems to carry me forward. I shake Jonathan Sterling's hand, his grip firm and warm. He hands me the award. It's cool and heavy in my hands, a solid, tangible piece of my new reality. I step up to the microphone. The 1,000 faces in the audience blur into a sea of light and shadow. I don't have a speech prepared. I just have the truth. Thank you. I begin, my voice clear and steady, amplified throughout the silent hall. Thank you to the committee and to Mr. Sterling. I started Second Draft because I believe that everyone, no matter their circumstances, deserves a chance at a new beginning. I believe that a person's worth isn't defined by their age, or their past, or by the people who choose to leave them behind. My eyes drift as if by accident to table 7. He is still staring, his face pale. Amelia has stopped clapping now. A flicker of confusion crosses her face as she follows my gaze to Mark, seeing his expression for the first time. She is starting to put the pieces together. This award isn't for me. I continue, my voice gaining strength. It's for every woman who has ever been told she was too old, too used, too broken to start over. It's for every woman who has been made to feel invisible. I am here tonight to tell you that you are not invisible. Your story is not over. You have the power to pick up the pen and write your own second draft. And trust me, I say, my eyes locking with Mark's one last time, a final, silent message passing between us across the crowded room. The new ending is so much better than the old one. I don't smile.
I don't need to.
I simply nod, hold up the award, and walk off the stage as the applause thunders around me, a storm I created myself. The aftermath is a surreal dream. People flock to me during the post-ceremony reception, a constellation of powerful, important people who now want to talk to me. CEOs of other companies, venture capitalists, philanthropists. They don't see Mark's ex-wife. They see the winner. They see the future. Jonathan Sterling introduces me to his entire executive team, telling them, Claire's going to be working with us to roll out second draft nationally. She's the real deal. I feel a presence at my elbow, and I turn. It's Mark. He looks smaller than I've ever seen him, stripped of his power and bravado. The confident smirk is gone, replaced by a desperate, pleading look. Amelia is nowhere in sight. Claire, he says, his voice low, almost a whisper. Can we talk? For a minute. I don't think we have anything to talk about, Mark. I say, my voice calm and even. There is no anger in it. There is nothing. It's like looking at a stranger I vaguely knew a long time ago. That was incredible, he stammers. What you've built. I had no idea. No, I say, a flicker of dry humor touching my lips. You didn't. Listen, Claire, I was a fool, he says, his eyes searching mine for a crack, for a hint of the old me, the forgiving me. I made a terrible mistake. What we had, maybe we could. I hold up a hand, stopping him. I look at this man who tried to break me, who called me old and worthless, who is now trying to claw his way back into the light of my success. And I feel a profound sense of pity for him. He hasn't learned a thing.
He doesn't want me back.
He wants to be associated with my victory. The mistake you made, Mark, I say, my voice soft but final, was in thinking my story was a chapter in your book. It's not. It never was. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have people to talk to. I turn my back on him without another word and walk away, leaving him standing alone in the middle of the crowded room. I don't look back. I don't need to. I know what I would see. A man shrinking, fading into the background, becoming irrelevant. Later that night, I'm standing on the balcony of my hotel room, the city lights spread out before me like a carpet of fallen stars. The heavy glass award sits on the table beside me, cool to the touch. The air is crisp and clean. My phone buzzes. It's a text from Leo. Heard you broke the internet.
So proud of you, Mom.
You build it back. Stronger. A single tear, one of gratitude and release, rolls down my cheek. He was wrong. I wasn't too old. I was just getting started. The pain of the last year wasn't an ending. It was a crucible. It burned away the parts of me that were weak, the parts that depended on his approval. It forged me into someone new, someone stronger, someone who didn't need a partner to feel whole or a man's success to feel worthy. I look out at the endless, glittering city, and for the first time in a long time, I'm not looking back at the ruins of my past. I'm looking forward at the vast, unknown, and beautiful landscape of my own future. My second draft. And I have a feeling it's going to be a masterpiece. Thanks for being here with me for this. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life. I hope you'll join me for the next one.